Hey everyone, welcome back. I am here today with Jools, Watsham of Atui. They are the devs of Mutant Mudds as well as Drifter for the Nintendo Switch. Big thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. It's nice to be here, man.
So I asked you to come on the show because I'm a big fan of your work. I played Mutant Mudds on the 3DS. I think I played it on my phone as well, way back in the day.
Yeah.
And Drifter, I played both on Steam and Nintendo Switch, and I'm a big fan of both of those games.
Thanks, man.
What's your job on the dev team?
It's interesting. Like when I started in the industry many eons ago, I started as a pixel artist. That was my entry into the professional side of things. And then, like game designer, that role didn't really exist. Like, well, it may have in some places, but in the companies I joined in my world, it wasn't formalized yet. There was a programmer, there was an artist, and game design is something that happened in the middle magically somehow. You guys figure it out. Thank you. And unbeknownst to me, I think I'd always really been a game designer and had that passion and desire to be a game, to get into the game design, but just didn't really realize it. So anyway, later as things got more formalized, at least in the Western, video game scene, and game design roles emerged and were more formalized, that's kind of what I jumped over to. So, but I've done production as well as far as being the producer, more of the kind of making sure everything's on time and everyone's happy and everything's good. So I've kind of had a lot of roles over the years, but now at Atui, my main thing is game design. I'll do pixel art as well. And obviously production, planning it, making sure everything's good, as well as the business side, the PR. So I dip into some audio, some music and stuff sometimes. So almost everything aside from programming.
Oh, okay.
Would be the quick way of saying it.
There you go. Awesome. So, okay, you said that you did some pixel art on like SNES. What are some games that you worked on before you started your own studio?
The very first one was an NES game. This was in 92, I think. Yes. It was an NES game called Rodland. Most of it had been done. I kind of was brought on towards the end. It was my first job, basically, as a pixel artist, and I just filled in some of the things and did some stuff. But over the years since then, some of the ones that people may have heard of, things like NBA Jam, Aero the Acrobat. Did Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel Wells, my first lead artist role, which was really fun. Pirates of Dark Water was another one. Side Pocket is a pool game by Data East on the Super Nintendo. So yeah, a bunch of fun pixel stuff. A lot of the years at Iguana, which was then later bought by Acclaim, were pixel stuff before we got into the, I guess, N64 era, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast and so on, as it went on from there. Which is interesting because the N64 PlayStation era pixels were a bad thing. Like there was no pixel games.
Right,
suddenly
yeah,
that was yesterday's news.
Polygonal.
Now it's polygons. And suddenly no one wanted to touch 2D. So I was like, oh man. So to me, I was like, oh, it's over. Oh man. I hadn't done a pixel game at that point. I had worked on some, but I hadn't done my own project. Like my own design, my own creation. So I was like, oh, kind of sad. But so I was really happy when it started to come back, like years later, especially when the indie scene took off, that's when people could actually self-publish. Whereas publishers, I don't think were brave enough to publish or put money into a pixel game, whereas indies were like, I don't care, I want to do this. And it kind of grew. And, thankfully it's back. It's more of an art style rather than, I don't know. Some people call it retro, I guess, but I like to think of it as an art style, a choice that you can use to make a game. But I can understand where people are like, nah, it's just retro, just nostalgia. It's like, well, it depends on who's creating it and why they're creating it, I suppose. But for me, it's more like I just love pixels. It's a great art medium to get into, and do stuff. So I like to think of it as just a nice art style rather than only tapping into nostalgia, which, some people probably do.
It's pretty amazing how... And I agree with you. It's definitely an art style because there's a skill to making something with as few colors as possible and making it still look
like anything.
Like anything. And
exactly,
it's wonderful how this art style, kind of was born out of just the technical limitations at the time. Like during the NES era, it was like 6 colors is how many you could have for a character sprite. And that just is amazing to me. And then the fact that today we're getting these games which are still, I don't like the word limited because that feels like that they are less than, but they are limited. They force themselves to be limited to this style. And I just think it looks really good. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, me too, man. I love it. It's fun. And I'm sure that nostalgia certainly plays a part in it. But I just appreciate, exactly like you were saying, I appreciate when someone can create something out of so few pixels and colors and actually make it look, like something. And then, then the whole, that's just the main character. And then you put the world and the enemies and everything around it. And it's just like, wow, this whole world exists in this bizarre, abstract kind of format. I like it a lot. So I love 3D stuff as well, but I definitely have a soft spot for 2D, obviously.
So you guys at Atui, you make a lot of, and I know you don't like the term, but retro games.
Oh, I don't dislike it. It's not.
But it's not really what you're doing because you're going for an art style. But like, how do I want to say this? What's the inspiration for a lot of those games? Go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, I'd say the little motto we have underneath the Atui logo is retro roots, modern mojo. So we kind of, trying to take some of the retro stuff that we came from, but then looking at what's going on today, such as save points and checkpoints and modern sensibilities that didn't exist back then, way back when there's passwords, that's how you'd have to enter something. If you made any kind of progress, it'd give you a password of 1,000 characters. You had to write it down somewhere and hope that you didn't make a mistake. When you load up the game again, you put it back in. It's like, ugh. But so not those things. That would be under the modern mojo of sensibilities. Yeah, and so we're definitely embracing that. It was interesting. Before Atui, I founded a company with a good friend of mine, Greg Hargrove, Renegade Kid, and our first game was for the DS called Dementium: The Ward, which is a 3D bloody FPS. So and at the time, kind of cutting edge, if you will, for the DS. It was 60 frames a second. It had blood, it had gore, it had lighting effects. It was like, wow, really quite impressive for that machine, relatively speaking. So it's interesting, like that company kind of launched into that market with some technical savvy, kind of like, oh wow, they're actually pushing the DS to the limits. That's crazy. And we continued doing some of that, and then later we got into doing Mutant Muds and Zero Drifter, and then we ended Renegade Kid, and we both went off and started our own companies. And so with Atui, it was interesting. I was faced with an interesting kind of junction point. Like, what do I want Atui to be? Why are we doing this? What's the point? What's going to make me happy? What are people going to like? How do I try and create some sort of identity, some kind of authenticity to what on earth we're doing? So I spent some time thinking about that, and I was like, you know what? I really want to embrace, and that's where the retro roots, modern mojo came from. I was like, I really want to embrace that retro kind of love that I have for the old stuff, but bring it to today and make it kind of less painful than it used to be, as far as from the player's perspective, where it's brutally hard. Even though my games are hard, they're really nothing compared to the original.
Yeah, that's true.
Retro games, which are unforgivingly hard. So if anyone thinks Mutant Muds is hard, like, yeah, you should go back and play, Ghosts and Goblins or something, something like that. It's like, or Mega Man.
So were those the games you grew up on, like Ghosts and Goblins and Mega Man, or was it prior to that? I kind of grew up more on the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64, and then went on to the Atari ST and the Commodore Amiga. So kind of a strange, very much a Euro kind of experience. And then later kind of got into the NES, Genesis, Super Nintendo, kind of after that. So, and the computer games, if you will, from Europe on the Spectrum, on the Commodore 64 were very strange compared to the games that were coming out on the NES and the Super Nintendo. Some really, really great games like Jet Set Willy, Monty on the Run, Hungry Horace,
Lunar Jetman, stuff like that, which are great games in their own right, but so different, so quirkily different to the games you'd find by Nintendo on the NES. So it's an interesting, fun, kind of quirky, experience that I had with those games. So it was really nice to then get onto the NES and stuff like that, where the games were a little bit more. And some people won't like me saying this, but when you get onto the NES, the Super Nintendo, Genesis, and so on, those games were generally a little bit more kind of professional, a bit more pulled together. Whereas the Spectrum 64 games, even though they're brilliant in their own right, they did have a kind of indie, kind of amateurish vibe to them. I mean, they had, brilliance, spots of brilliance along the way for sure, especially in music and art and design and technology for the time. But generally, as a collective, you compare it to the NES library, for example, it's interesting. It's almost like this is like the garage band kind of over here, and here's the actual, the fully produced kind of stuff.
A little more refined.
Really, yeah, exactly. It's very interesting. So anyway, so that's what I grew up with was the kind of more quirky, strange Euro kind of 8-bit. Yeah, I guess it was 8-bit. Yeah, stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
But so with Atui, so the idea was to kind of embrace that, but also kind of bring it into the modern stuff. So we have like Soccer Slammers, which I'm wearing a T-shirt right now, if you can see that.
It's a sweet T-shirt.
Thank you. Which is using voxel art, so it looks very retro still, because the resolution, if you will, of the voxels are very akin to like an NES game, but it's obviously 3D, fully 3D and delicious and lovely and lit and very crisp and lovely. So it's kind of a nice blend of the retro with the modern. So obviously not everything we do is going to be pixel, but they're still kind of dipped in that kind of those roots,
Right, like somebody took a 3D game and said, poured some pixels on top of it, almost.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, you've developed a couple of games for the Nintendo Switch, and this is a Nintendo Switch podcast. You have Zeo Drifter, as well as you guys brought Mutant Mudds over. And now you have been working on porting Chicken Wiggle. Congratulations on the Kickstarter campaign, by the way.
Thank you.
So when you were working on the Nintendo Switch, how is that different than programming, or not necessarily programming, than developing for previous Nintendo hardware, or even other hardware that you have ported your games to in the past?
It's been very pleasant. We spent a lot of time on the DS and the 3DS, and they're very underpowered, specialized machines when it comes to developing for them, because they don't have much horsepower. So we had to do, we had to primarily use our own proprietary engines that were built specifically for those platforms to squeeze every ounce of power out of them. So there's very little overhead or fat in the engine. So all of it could be used for the game. And so I think with Dementium and New Muds, are pretty good examples of kind of showing that they're doing some nice stuff that if you're using Unity, for example, or Unreal or something like that on the 3DS, no, it's just not going to happen. There's no way. I mean, even if it did run, it wouldn't run very well. It wouldn't be able to pull off all of those things on the 3DS and the DS. So that was interesting. That was different. So they're coming over to the Switch now. Like Soccer Slammers, for example, we're using Unity to develop that game, and I don't know. It's a lot less constraining. You can really do what you want, which is kind of nice. Obviously, if you're going for really hyper realistic stuff, then obviously you're going to still run into issues and barriers as far as really pushing the performance. I'm sure Doom on the Switch was very challenging to make, for example, and it looks gorgeous. So it's actually been a very kind of easy, pleasant experience, actually. Even like with Mutant Mudds Collection, which includes Mutant Mudds Deluxe, Mutant Mudds Super Challenge, and Mudblocks, all in one game. That does use our old proprietary engine kind of ported over to the Switch. Matthew Gambrell, who's the programmer of that, did the original and then moved over to the Switch. But even that was a very easy easy. I didn't have to feel the pain, so I can say it was easy. But it's some quick, painless experience of a few weeks to kind of get the core engine, boom, running on the Switch now, and then some more time to kind of then take advantage of the unique features of the Switch, make sure everything's lovely and clean and so on. But still a pretty easy, nice process. And then from a development point of view, I have a Switch that looks like a regular Switch, really, but it's a development Switch. So I can walk around with it, I can dock it, I can play with this like a normal Switch, and I can import the game to it. It can't play regular games, it can only play development games. And I can import it to it and play it like a regular game, which is fantastic. So I'll be playing, the broken game, over and over again, writing down what's wrong with it, and hopefully it gets fixed. And that's the cycle you go through until it's finally done, which we're very much in that right now. The Soccer Slammer is trying to wrap it up, which is both awesome and terrible at the same time. So you're playing it, hoping it's going to be perfect, and then something breaks or something pops up. Like, "Argh!" So you're constantly kind of iterating until you get to that moment of moment of calm where there's no noise, everything's just right. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So it's just been really good. And it, the experience on the 3DS and the DS were both good as well, but very different, where we really had to, oh my gosh, the Dementium on the DS, we were like, there were so many questions. We're like, hey, we want to do a first-person survival horror game on the DS with a flashlight. Okay, no idea if that's going to work. How do we even do this? Let's just give it a shot. So there's many steps of discovery and trying, and that didn't work, going back a little bit, going that direction instead, and kind of pushing at the boundaries to kind of see where we could go. And in many respects, we hit a wall pretty darn fast. In other respects, we were like, whoa, we can actually push this further than we thought we could. We can actually display a lot more polygons without any craziness happening than we thought. That's pretty cool. So that was definitely a more kind of a quest of discovery. And obviously the power of the 3DS is way more increased than the DS. So that was a little less of an issue there. And then obviously when you come to the Switch, those barriers are really just completely broken down for the type of games that we're making right now. There's just no concern of it running at a decent frame rate.
Awesome. So Chicken Wiggle, it was a 3DS game at first. Does that have a proprietary engine so that you could do what you wanted to do with it? And is that causing you any issues with porting it to the Switch?
It's really using the same engine as Mutant Mudds and Zeo Drifter. Okay. They have both been now moved over to the Switch. So really, obviously there are unique components to the Chicken Wiggle as far as the level editor and stuff like that. But the core engine, we can get the game over there and run, in pretty short order, but then actually tailoring it to the Switch as far as the screen resolution, where does the overlays go, and all that kind of stuff. It's just you have to get in there and just do it. But no, it's pretty good. The foundation has already been laid down nicely for that. So it's just really a matter of going in there and just doing each piece at a time. And then of course we made it more difficult for ourselves by like saying, hey, we're going to do high res new artwork. So we have to figure out how to handle that, because the game is running. Little Chicken Wiggle, is he on the wall? Can you see him? There he is, right there. He's a 16 by 16 pixel sprite. Essentially, he's a little bit more than that, but for argument's sake, let's say that's what he is. So on the high res version, I'm not sure what it is, but it's way bigger. You take that, you scale it up, you put it on a 720 screen. I don't know what the actual pixels is, but it's much, much larger. So you have to figure out how to display that and also cater to that at the same time, but then deal with collision and making sure there's, because that's a big difference. You take something that's 16 by 16, let's say you scale it up to 128 pixels by 128, for example. There's a huge margin of error there. If your collision is on a per pixel basis, you've just magnified the issues by a lot. Okay. So you have to kind of be like, all right, was there anything pixel perfect in the original? Yes, lots. All right, great. So how do we now scale that up without everything just being like, gross and smeary and disgusting? So that's an interesting technical challenge that we'll have to face. It's one of those things where you're like, man, the end result is going to be awesome. So we're just going to have to wrestle through that and figure it out, Yeah,
I'm definitely looking forward to that game. Zeo Drifter it's got to be one of my favorite Metroidvania games that I've ever played. Even though it's really short, I had a ton of fun playing it. And one thing that I if somebody said to me today, if I'm gonna pick up Zeo Drifter, where should I play it? I would absolutely say the Switch. And the reason, other than the fact that it's portable, is because of the HD rumble. I feel like Zeo Drifter is one of the best examples of HD rumble that I've seen so far. What is it that you guys at Atui are doing that other developers might not be to make it so great? Because Zeo Drifter really nailed what it should feel like, in my opinion.
I appreciate that. Matthew, who's the programmer and actually does audio and music games as well, but primarily he's been a programmer on a bunch of our games. He single-handedly did all of that, so I can't take any credit, and I can agree with you. It's awesome because I can say it like unbiased because I didn't make it. He did. So he and the reason for that, though, I think does stem from our perspective and where we came from with the 3DS, where we were making a game for a single platform. We weren't making a multi-platform game. We're making a 3DS game. And it kind of puts you in that mindset of, all right, what does this platform do? Oh, great, let's do that then. Rather than we have X game, we need to cram it. It already exists. We need to cram it onto 3DS. Let's just port that then. Oh, the 3DS happens to be, 3D and so on. Oh, well, our game doesn't support that, so ours won't be. But we came from a situation where it was very tailored to the platform. So when we come over to the Switch, it's the same mentality. It's like, well, what does this thing do? HD Rumble. That's pretty sweet. What does that mean? So we experiment with it. Like, whoa, the fidelity on the HD Rumble is like a sound wave. I mean, that's how granular it is. It's like a sound wave. It's like, wow. It's not just on off like most vibration joypads are. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of depth to it. So, well, that's amazing. So we did, a bunch of that on Mutant Muds. So the Mutant Muds Rumble is pretty awesome too. And Matthew did all of that. So that was our first outings to get into that. And that was the experimental kind of phase. And then I guess Matthew really enjoyed it, so he really went for gold on the Zeo Drifter. And it's just, there's no magic secret source to it or anything. It's really just time, love, and effort. You just have to go to each situation and go, great, this is the situation. Let's say it's when you jump in the water on Zeo Drifter. Okay, what do we want to do with that? We're going to, we have a sound effect for that. So let's take that sound effect and run that through the Rumble. How does that feel? Pretty good, but it has some problems here and here. It's too subtle, too much, whatever. Great. We'll just adjust that to fix that and go, great. Yeah, that works great. And then you just one at a time, you go through every situation in the game and you just tailor it. So it's just hard work and a vision, and love for it. And that's obviously what Matthew had for it. And he freaking nailed it. Yeah, it's awesome. I remember when I first got, he went through the entire game first, and then I got to experience the player. He just did everything. I hadn't felt anything. Suddenly I could feel everything. I was like, it was almost too intense. It was like, oh my god, it's like everything. So that's when we added the kind of high, mid, and low kind of intensity factor. Because to me, I was like, dude, this is way too. For me, I was like, this is way too intense. But he loved it, and I was like, all right, cool. Well, let's put the different settings in there so people can adjust it to their liking. Because some people, if you're wearing a ring, for example, and it's buzzing in your hand and it's hitting that ring, it's kind of like that's a bit much. So it's kind of nice to kind of tailor that based on the person, or if they're a young person and they're like, it's like shaking out of their hands or whatever. So it's cool. Thank you, though. But yeah, it's Matthew did a fantastic job with that.
So is there, you guys are working on Chicken Wiggle and Soccer Slammers. I almost called it Smashers for some reason. Soccer Slammers. So when is Soccer Slammers coming out?
We are aiming for the day the World Cup kicks off, which is June 14th. So we are wrapping it up now. With any luck, touch wood, we'll actually submit it to Nintendo next week. So it will be somewhere in the May 9th-ish region is when we'll send it off to them, and then when they like it will go through, be approved, and actually be released on June 14th. So if that doesn't quite make it, it'll be the week or two after that, depending on how everything goes.
Can you give a quick description of Soccer Slammers for anybody who's listening or watching that doesn't know much about it?
The elevator pitch is really simple. It's really the NBA Jam of soccer. Very, very basic. It's 2-on-2. There are no rules. There's no throw-ins, no corners, no offsides. You can smack each other. You can slam each other and knock them out and steal the ball. You can do power shots to slam them in. It's very simple stripped down, fun arcade soccer. So I'm not particularly a soccer fan. I didn't make it because of soccer. I made it because like, hey, the World Cup's coming up. I love NBA Jam. Well, let's slap those two things together and do it the way we would do it. Let's make a fun arcadey game, like Mario Strikers or whatever. And that's kind of where it was born. So yeah.
So you say NBA Jam, and the first thing that I think of is the announcer.
Yeah.
Do you guys have an announcer?
No, we don't.
Oh man,
that was in the original plan, and that may be something we'll add in the future. That was the original plan, but we're like, it's a tremendous amount of time and effort to put that in, which we were prepared to do, but we kind of ran out of time because the World Cup date isn't moving.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So we're like, all right, let's wrap it up. Focus on the core gameplay.
You could just call them up. Can you move the World Cup? We're trying to do something.
We need some exactly. Yeah. But it was on our wish list as well. So maybe in the future, if we do another update or version in the future.
And then when that comes out, it's full steam ahead on the Switch version of Chicken Wiggle, right? Or are you already really working on that full time?
Yeah, I mean that's a separate track. So Chicken Wiggle is different people working on that. So that is rolling, and that is kind of it's an interesting project because it's a mixture of new work, especially with the artist, Michael Veroni, who's doing the new artwork for the game, and then Matthew, who's then porting over the functionality of the game. So so it's technical and creative at the same time. So that's kind of rolling, doing its thing. And then of course we can have the new music in there as well, which will be really great. So that's rolling, and then that's not really affected by Soccer Slammers right now. And then as soon as I'm done with Soccer Slammers, I am going to be jumping onto Treasure Noughts again, finally, which is a game I've been kicking around for many, many, many years. Oh my gosh.
What kind of game is Treasure Noughts?
It's a 2D platform game. So the elevator pitch for that is I try to make it as simple as possible to try and paint a picture on someone's mind. Is really it's Super Mario World meets Indiana Jones 2-player co-op.
Oh man, that sounds awesome. So
that is kind of what it is. So it kind of has that adventure of Super Mario World with like there's a map, islands that you're traveling across to get to wherever you're getting to. It's 2D side-scrolling platforming, but you can play 2-player or 1-player, simultaneously. It's actually split screen, so when you're in a level, you can go off and collect the loot, independently, because there's loot on every surface you can see. You can smack these treasure chests open, all this like jewels and gems kind of come flying out. It's awesome. But if you get hit, you spill out, all of your stuff, kind of like in a Sonic Hedgehog kind of style, like all your stuff comes spilling out. So you have to come and recollect it up. Okay. That's kind of how your health is your wealth kind of connection. So it's a real fun kind of Indiana Jones kind of like adventure, running around doing a thing. Do I have him anywhere? I don't have him on the wall anywhere. But he looks like Indiana Jones basically. But his name is Rhode Allen Smith, and he has the whole shebang. But no, it's a game I first revealed it. I think it was in 2013, maybe 12 even, but I think it was 2013. Which I shouldn't have done because everyone's been bugging me about it since then. Like, why isn't this done yet? It's fun. It's been an interesting project because we started it and then we had to stop, to kind of get other games finished up. Then we would come back to it and then jumped off to the other thing. So we've been kind of stopping and starting over the years, which has been really good for the game, because we get to take what we've learned from the games we've made, up to that point, and then put it back into this game, whether it be just kind of creative ideas, mainly creative ideas, game design, art, just kind of let it percolate, letting it digest over the years to marinate, it'll be fun. I'm excited to finally jump back into it. So.
And what platforms is that going to be for?
Definitely the Switch, and hopefully the PS4 and Xbox One as well.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, I don't know if you can say anything or if, maybe the answer is just straight up no. Are there any plans for you guys to be able to get out like amiibo for your characters? Because your characters have such, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. They're fantastically designed, and I think that they would look awesome as like little 3D dudes.
Cool, thank
Any
you.
chance of that?
It's possible. Nintendo does allow third-party, developers to do that. It does take a fairly significant financial investment to do it because you're kind of responsible. It's not like Nintendo's like, hey, yeah, you want your guys done? We'll put it up there and we'll just split the profits. It doesn't really work like that. They're like, you have to go to them as, I guess, a quote unquote toy manufacturer to be like, hey, here's our thing. Can we include this in your line? And they can be like, yes, that's approved. I'm not sure what the process is. I don't know. But we have to do all the work. They don't do anything for you.
Okay.
They kind of allow you to do it. They allow you to license to be able to do that. And that's why not many people have done that, because it's a pretty big thing. It's awesome to see things like Shovel Knight. They jumped into it, which is amazing. But it was a significant effort, I think, on their part to pull that off. So good for them for doing that.
Yeah.
I'd love to. I'd love to be in the financial situation to be able to do it. In the meantime, though, we do have these fun little 3D printed figures that people can actually order on our website.
Oh, that's awesome. I did not know that. That's the Soccer Slammers, right?
There's the Soccer Slammers guy. And then we have the way Max looks in Totes the Goat. There's the little kind of voxelized version of him. And then Totes the Goat, which is another game we have on the Switch right now. There's him, and that's literally what he looks like in the game.
A little closer to your face.
Okay, this is the game model. There's little Totes right there.
So how do you decide what goes on the back?
Of him? So it's got a little tail.
Well, I mean, for Totes, it's probably a little easier, but like for Max,
right. Yeah, he just has his little shirt on, and just his little shirt continues.
Just goes all the way around. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are really cool. Those are very cool.
Little hairline there on the back of his head.
No Zeo Drifter though.
No, I need to get one. I mean, he does exist because he was in Totes the Goat as well as a playable character. So there is a voxelized version of him. I need to order him as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
So if you go to atui.com, there's a little toys button you can click on, and there's tons of them. I'll put a link in the show notes. Okay, cool. There's a company in France called FabZat, and they generate them. So it's a create to order kind of deal. So you can go on there, and they kind of vary in price, which is a little strange, but it's based on the material or whatever's involved in creating it. So some may be like $11.90 or whatever, and then suddenly like Max, I think, is like $21. Like, whoa. So I think it's based on how difficult it is to make or something. I don't know. Yeah, so, maybe the colors too, like maybe some colors are more expensive. That's very interesting. But yeah, no, they're fun. So they actually are the models from the game, and then generated in real life, which is pretty amazing. So other than your games, we've been talking a lot about your stuff. I just want to know a little bit about Jools Watsham. Other than your games, what is your favorite game? Wow, my favorite game. Jeez. I don't know if I have a favorite game, but I mean, Mario has definitely been, I think, out of all of the Nintendo kind of characters or games, I think Mario has probably been the main one for me. I mean, I love Zelda, I mean, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, and all the rest of it. But I think Mario, as far as like, especially, just you're looking at the major milestones from the NES, Mario Brothers, to then Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, and then Mario 64, and then 64. And I liked Mario Sunshine. I know that some people love it and some people hate it. And then, of course, Mario Galaxy, and then more, and actually, I really liked Mario 3D World, Mario 3D Land as well on 3DS, and then more recently, of course, Mario Odyssey. So, yeah, that's definitely the thing that gets me really excited, is the new Mario game, definitely. So what do you prefer, 2D Mario or 3D Mario? They're completely different, but if I was sent off to a desert island, I guess. Yeah, that's what I mean. They are totally different. They are completely different. Probably 2D. Yeah, probably 2D. I mean, I love 3D. It'd be a tough choice, but probably 2D. And for me, it's because I'm a game designer, and I really appreciate how exacting the collision is in a 2D game. It's black and white. There's very little gray. Where a 3D game, it's all gray, because you can't judge distances unless it's a 3D game, of course. You're kind of basing it on memory and other visual cues. You're not truly judging distance and space. Because, it's not in stereo vision. So, and that, even though it's fantastic and they work well and everything's lovely, I think that would be the reason. My geeky, nerdy reason would be that.
What do you do for fun that has nothing to do with video games?
Sleep.
So you don't get to do anything. You're too busy working. Is that what it is?
Pretty much. No, I love movies. Steven Spielberg is probably my favorite director. So, I mean, like Indiana Jones, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, is a big inspiration. Jurassic Park.
Did you go see Ready Player One?
I did, yeah.
Were you a fan of that? Or I know it's pretty divisive.
Oh, is it? No, I thought it was great. I mean, it's just a fun ride, right? I didn't expect much more than that.
Yeah, not every movie has to be, that Rosebud, but you know what I mean? I gotcha.
I thought it was fun. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So last question. What are you excited about or looking forward to?
Generally speaking, or video game related?
Just whatever. Comes to mind.
Well, in the very near future, I'm actually looking forward to getting Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, because it should be arriving today. And if it maybe, I think it already has. I got a package while we're actually on the call today. I see a little DHL package right there. So I think that's my Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. So I'm looking forward to that. But more in the distant future, I'm excited to see what new stuff Nintendo does for the Switch. Like we've had. I mean, Zelda Breath of the Wild is ridiculous. That's such a milestone in gaming, and for that brand, that franchise, and then Odyssey is incredible as well. So it's gonna be fun to see what more they do. Like as far as what more can they do? I mean, I'm not a huge Smash Brothers fan. I mean, I appreciate the game, but it's not something that really gets me excited. So I'm sure that's going to be coming this year or next or whatever. So I'm excited to see what else they come up with. Are they going to do like a sequel to Odyssey? Are they going to do like a Galaxy or a 3D World style Mario? It's going to be interesting to see what happens. So I'm looking forward to the future of first-party Switch games.
Awesome. So, Jools, where is it that can people find out stuff about your games, and where can they find you on the internet?
So atooi.com, so atooi.com has pretty much everything. I mean, it has all of our games. On the About page, you'll find my Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's pretty a good kind of one-stop shopping. Go to Atooi and that'll have all the links and stuff to everything else. So I'm on Twitter. We actually started a Discord, server recently, which is fun. It's just a nice, fun, casual. It's open invite. It's not hardcore. You don't have to do anything to rank up. You just jump in there and just talk about games. So it's a pretty nice, fun, casual place to be. So I'm using that more and more now. So so atooi.com is the best place to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.